All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin this video by giving the praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushai, by Hashem, Racha, Kodash, the Bonner City Apostles, and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Lord's elect. Beginning with the 144,000. This is a Ratazah from the Great Millstone GMS Atlanta camp. All right, with another quick one. And this one is going to be centered around the topic of how we have a special connection to the Bible, and how our enemies, starting with Esau, you got the other nations, and how they basically trying to they're basically trying to keep us from fully tapping in with the spirit of the Lord, which we've already done. All right, because that's prophecy. As far as the like you read Ezekiel the 37th chapter, you read about the dry bones. All right, waking up, or the dry bones coming together, that represents the nation of Israel. All right, starting with the believers in Yahweh Shem Yahushua waking up to the truth. It also speaks about that in I want to say, what's that, Revelations 11. All right, where it speaks about after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life entered into them, and they stood upon their feet. So that was us essentially receiving the spirit, and us getting the truth and coming back to the knowledge of who we were. And it speaks about how, the enemies feared, because why? They know that once we're connected and tapped in with the spirit of the Most High, in truth, that means that they're going down. All right. And they, speaking about, is, the other nations, Esau, which is the so-called white man, our arch nemesis. All right. And you got the other nations as well. And the scriptures list them as our enemies. We read Psalms the 83rd chapter. So we have a certain connection, or a spiritual connection, to the Bible, and the other nations know that, especially Esau. All right. So that's why I have one of the tabs I have up is pertaining to the slave Bible, which actually I'll tap into that now. All right. This is an article. We've done videos on the slave Bible in the past. But this is from NPR.org. As you see, the title here says Slave Bible from the 1800s omitted key passages that could incite rebellion. Right. So Esau, the damn devil, all right, he basically gave Jacob a redacted or edited version of the scriptures by taking out certain verses and chapters, because as the title says, it could incite a rebellion. All right, or give Jacob a particular level of courage and confidence to go against the grain, or go against Esau. And why is that? Because us reading these scriptures is us reading about ourselves, especially the book of Exodus, which I think is one of the majority of the book is taken out of the slave Bible. Us reading Exodus, essentially us reading our history. The book of Leviticus, the book of Genesis, the book of, really the whole Bible is our history. All right. So that's why they took certain things out, because they tried to cut that connection. All right. And then I just read a little bit of this. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. It says, on display now at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., in a special exhibit centered on a rare Bible from the 1800s that was used by British missionaries to convert and educate slaves. This is what's notable about this Bible, is not just its rarity, but its content, or rather lack of content. It excludes any portion of text that might inspire rebellion or liberation. See that? When we read these scriptures and we was taught the truth from the apostles, the elders on down, even their elders and leaders that taught them, all right, we felt a level of liberation. We felt a level of power, coming to the knowledge that we're Israelites, we're the sons and daughters of the Most High. That what came to mind when I was putting my scriptures together. I read it real fast. St. John 8:32. All right, and it says, Yeah, I just jumped to the point. All right, St. John 8:32. It says, "And ye shall know the truth." Excuse me. "And the truth shall make you free." All right, to be free is a sense of being liberated. Yeah. So when we learned of the truth, when we learned about Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, the scriptures, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, knowing that we're Israelites, that we're a blessed people and nation, you know, that essentially woke us up, and it really set us free from the lies of this world, man. All right. And Esau don't want that. Esau wants us to be in this dumbed down. He basically wants us to dwell in darkness. He don't want us to have this knowledge. You know, and it's a connection. All right. And Esau again knew that going back to the time of slavery. That's why they gave Jake back then. I guess for lack of a better word, a handicapped version of the Bible. And even today, Jake still follow that same philosophy and religion. That's why we call it plantation Christianity. Because even though they physically have the full Bible, Christians are walking around with they don't believe in the Apocrypha, but, they have a King James Bible, Old New Testament, but they still don't understand the whole roll, the whole book, or they don't go into things. So they still have a plantation Christianity, mindset, so to speak, but us brothers and a few sisters that believe when I watch the videos, all right, we essentially were made free by receiving this truth, which is only given to a select few, all right, Israelites. All right, so that's that one. And that was the main point, to show that how they took particular things out of the scriptures, because if they feared that the slaves would get inspired and they would rally, and go against the establishment, which happened with Nat Turner. Nat Turner was going to the scriptures, right? He got his hand on a Bible that wasn't edited. He started reading, like, wait a minute, this talking about us. And he started to basically rise up against these damn devils. But of course, it wasn't time for us to overcome and get the leverage over Esau. We had to go through the prophecies and the curses. But yeah, we have a connection to this book. That's why the Christians too, comes to mind is this guy Vocab Malone. That's why they always attack Deuteronomy 28th chapter. Because they know that that's a major chapter. That's a ultimate indicator to prove that we're the Israelites. It's like a spiritual DNA, so to speak. Right? Tells you about the slave ship, tells you about captivity in America, which is modern day Egypt. It speaks about the yoke of iron on our necks. Various other curses and prophecies. So that's why they try to attack that, because it links us to being the Israelites. Not to mention the color scriptures, how the Israelites are dark skinned. How it details the features of the Lord and the Most High, being dark skinned men with woolly textured hair and all that. Speaks about how the Jews are black. these are all we all read about our history. You see, so there's a connection there. Nobody else has the connection on the earth but us, so-called blacks, Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. All right, so that's the slave Bible. Let's go from there. Let's get these last couple of scriptures I got pulled up. All right, this is Romans 8:16. It says the Spirit. Romans 8:16. It says the Spirit itself bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. Right. So we read, we're basically reading these scriptures. This is essentially the Spirit of the Lord. All right, as the Lord said, what did He say? The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. Yeah. So the Spirit, the words of the Most High, they bear witness with us. We read these things and we're like, yeah, this is something that we're going through. Our ancestors went through this. We lived through this prophecy. You know, these are so-called Black, Hispanic, Native American so-called men that we're reading about. You know, there's a level of what's the word? Basically, we can all relate to the scriptures. You know, it's like we're basically we're reading about ourselves. Okay, and we are the children of the Most High, the children of Israel. Then it goes on and says, 17, it says, and if children, then heirs, heirs of the Most High, and joint heirs with Hamashiach, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified with him. Right? We're going to be, we're suffering, we're bearing our cross, and we're going to be glorified with Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai in the kingdom. We're going to be joint heirs, because essentially it's Yahweh Shai's kingdom, but he's going to, for lack of a better word, share it, if you will, with his elect, with the rest of the nation of Israel. All right, but the point is, in verse 16, man, Spirit bear witness with our spirit, with the children of the Most High. These prophecies in His Word, man. All right, next scripture is the book of Baruch, chapter 2, and verse 30. This is, for I knew that they would not hear me. Right, the day is talking about the nation of Israel, our people. All right, starting with the 2/3, right, because there's a separation. Even though all Israel, the Israelites are the elect and chosen nation, but within that still is a certain portion of Israel the Most High is not dealing with, and they're going to be destroyed here in America. Okay, the 2/3, Zechariah 13th chapter, and I believe the 8th verse tells you that. So our people are not hearing the voice of the Lord, all right, which is essentially the prophets. So it says, for I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, right? Blacks, Hispanics, Native American people are, hard-headed, man. It says, but in the land of their captivities, they shall remember themselves, which really goes into us having a remembrance of our sins, or how we sinned against the Most High, based upon reading the curses and measuring the time, linking it up. We all remember us going off as a people, okay, which is the answer to why we're even in America and why we're in captivity. But also we're gonna remember ourselves as far as coming back to the knowledge of who we are, okay, that we're the Hebrew Israelites of our different various tribes, whether it's Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and stuff like that. But us coming back to that knowledge, okay, it was prophecy, and how do we even get to that point? Is because we have a connection with the Bible. All right, as I mentioned, read Deuteronomy 28. All right, various other chapters and scriptures that go into the certain prophecies that we would endure as a nation, certain history. We all link it together and come to the conclusion that, yeah, this is talking about us. And the point of the video is that Esau wants to stop that. All right. That's why we believe he's, paying particular groups and guys off to teach wayward doctrines, to teach things that's contrary to a sound doctrine, contrary to the word of the Lord, to cast stumbling blocks in front of Israel, to lessen your faith. It's a spiritual war, man. So it says, Baruch 2:30 again, it says, for I knew that they would not hear me, because of the stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivities, which America is one of the lands of our captivity, it says they shall remember themselves, right? Which goes into coming back to the knowledge of who we are as a people, Hebrew Israelites. All right. I think that was a point on that. Yeah, we'll get one more. It's a good one in the book of Judith. All right. And this is Judith 5 and reading verse 20. It says, "Now therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error against this people," right? People is talking about here is the nation of Israel, the Israelites, "and they sin against their power of God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up and we shall overcome them." Right. So these nations knew that if we're going off, if we're sinning against the Heavenly Father, doing things contrary to his word, being wicked, the other nations can have the upper hand on us, you know. And even today, Esau knows that. That's why he pushes out propaganda, he pushes out wickedness, pushes out lies. All right. He essentially puts things out there to deceive or trick our people into not following the Most High. Hence, what he can have the leverage over us. You see, it says, but what? Verse 21, it says, "But if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest their Lord defend them, and their power be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world." See that? So the flip side of that is they know is that if we're on point and we're in tune and tapped in with Yahweh Shem Shai, it says what? It's going to be for their ruin. All right? Or it said that, no, excuse me, it said the Lord's going to defend us. And the Most High is going to be on our side, and that they're going to be reproached before all the world. See that? And that's what they fear. That's why we quoted earlier in Revelations, was that 11, about the spirit of life entered into us, and the enemy which saw us, they feared. Roughly paraphrasing, man. You know, so it's all spiritual, man. All right, the Bible's our book. We have a deep connection. We read these words. It resonates with us. The prophecies all fit us. You know, such as the curses, and you know, essentially the cat's out the bag, man. You know, pretty much Hebrew Israelites is like a household, so-called household name now. Everybody knows about us. The word is out. You know, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Okay, these Edomites, you know, from the top on to the rest of the nations, it's over because it's all a part of the story. It's all part of prophecy. It was only a matter of time. You know, we was lost and destitute for a period of duration of time, but through prophecy, we you know, rose up, so to speak, and now we have this knowledge. You see, so I just want to do a quick video on that. You know, that was just a thought I had in mind. Had a couple of scriptures I wanted to, you know, get out. And yeah, all right. Lord willing, you was edified by this video. And it's on to the next one. Shalom.